Deep below the churning waves of the Atlantic, far beneath the reach of the fiercest storm, lies the hidden kingdom of Ethelgard. This is a realm where the water glows with a soft, ethereal light, and the architecture is grown from living coral rather than built by hand. For millennia, the inhabitants of this deep-sea sanctuary have lived in harmony with the tides, hidden away from the prying eyes of the surface world. It is a place of absolute silence, yet it teems with the secret songs of the ocean. Here time moves differently, measured not by clocks, but by the slow pulses of the great whales passing overhead. Welcome to a world of pure magic, where the boundaries of reality are as fluid as the water itself.
In the heart of this sapphire paradise lived Lyra, the youngest daughter of the Sea King. While her sisters were content tending to their gardens of sea anemones, Lyra was different. Her spirit was as restless as the currents. She possessed a beauty that was legendary, even among her kind, with hair the color of crushed rubies and scales that shimmered like polished emeralds. But it was her eyes, bright turquoise and full of wonder, that revealed her true nature. She didn't just want to live in the ocean, she wanted to understand the mysteries it held. Lyra spent her days exploring the deepest trenches and the most dangerous reefs, always searching for a sign of something more than the life she had always known. One afternoon, while scouring a forgotten ship graveyard, Lyra found something that would change her life forever. It was a small golden spyglass, encrusted with barnacles, but still reflecting a faint glimmer of the light from above. To Lyra, it wasn't just a trinket, it was a bridge to another world. She had heard the whispered legends of the air walkers who lived on the dry land, creatures who breathed the very atmosphere and stood on pillars of bone. Her father had forbidden any contact with the surface, fearing the greed and violence of humanity. Yet, as she held the spyglass, Lyra felt a pull in her chest, a longing to see the world where the sun never set, and the stars were not filtered through leagues of brine. As the years passed, Lyra's obsession only grew stronger. She would often swim to the highest peaks of the underwater mountains, gazing upward at the shimmering surface that looked like a ceiling of liquid silver. She imagined what it would be like to feel the wind against her skin, or the warmth of the sun on her face. Her best friend, a wise old turtle named Thorn, warned her that the surface was a place of danger and unpredictability, but Lyra could not be swayed. She believed that there was a connection between her world and the one above, a destiny that was calling her name. She began to collect more artifacts, creating a secret grotto filled with the discarded treasures of the humans, each piece a puzzle of a life she could only dream of. The turning point came on the night of the great equinox. A massive storm began to brew on the surface, sending tremors of energy down into the depths. While the rest of Ethelgard sought shelter, Lyra felt an irresistible urge to see the storm firsthand. She broke the surface for the first time, gasping as the salty air filled her lungs. The sky was a chaotic tapestry of purple and gray, illuminated by jagged bolts of lightning. In the distance, she saw a massive wooden vessel struggling against the mountainous waves. It was a ship of the surface world, and it was in grave trouble. Lyra watched in horror as the mast snapped like dry twigs, and the hull began to groan under the pressure of the ocean's wrath. Amidst the chaos of the sinking ship, Lyra spotted a young man clinging to a piece of debris. He was Prince Eric, a ruler known for his kindness and his love for the sea. As the ship finally succumbed to the waves, Eric was thrown into the freezing water, his strength quickly failing him. Lyra knew the rules of her kingdom. She knew that helping a human was an act of treason. But as she watched him sink into the dark abyss, she couldn't let him die. She dove beneath the waves, her powerful tail propelling her toward the drowning prince. She caught him just as the light was fading from his eyes, pulling his heavy frame toward the surface with every ounce of her strength. The journey to the shore was long and grueling. Lyra fought against the receding tide and the exhaustion creeping into her muscles. She kept Eric's head above the water, whispering songs of the deep to keep his spirit tethered to the world. Finally, she reached a secluded beach where the sand was as white as bone. She dragged him onto the shore, making sure he was breathing before she retreated back into the shallow waves. She stayed there for hours, watching him from the safety of the water, memorizing the features of his face. She felt a connection she couldn't explain, a bond forged in the crucible of the storm. When she heard the voices of his search party approaching, she reluctantly disappeared back into the depths. Back in Æthelgard, Lyra was a ghost of her former self. She couldn't forget the feel of Eric's hand or the way the air felt on the land. Her silence became a wall between her and her family. Desperate to find a way back to him, she decided to seek out the one being everyone feared, the sea witch, Malachor. Malachor lived in a trench where the water was thick with ink and the skeletons of ancient sea monsters formed the walls of his lair. He was a creature of shadow and deals, offering heart's desires for a terrible price. Lyra knew the risks, but the pull of the surface world and the memory of the prince were too strong to ignore. She swam into the darkness, determined to change her fate.
Malachor greeted her with a twisted smile, his voice like the grinding of stones on the seafloor. He knew why she had come. He offered her a potion that would transform her tail into legs, allowing her to walk among the humans. But the cost was steep. She would have to give up her voice, the most beautiful sound in all the oceans. Furthermore, if she failed to make the prince fall in love with her within 3 sunsets, she would dissolve into sea foam and be lost forever. Lyra hesitated, her hand trembling as she reached for the vial of glowing purple liquid. She thought of Æthelgard, of her father, and then of Eric. With a final, silent prayer, she drank the potion and felt a searing pain rip through her body.
The transformation was agonizing. Lyra felt as though 1,000 knives were piercing her scales as they shifted and merged. She lost consciousness as she floated toward the surface, her body changing in ways she couldn't comprehend. When she woke up, she was lying on the same beach where she had left the prince. She tried to cry out, but no sound came from her throat. She looked down and saw 2 long, slender legs instead of her emerald tail. Every step felt like walking on broken glass, just as Malachor had warned. She was vulnerable, alone, and voiceless in a world she didn't understand. But then she saw him. Prince Eric was walking along the shore, his eyes searching the horizon for the woman who had saved him.
Eric found her and was instantly struck by her beauty and the familiar look in her turquoise eyes. He didn't know she was the mermaid, as she couldn't tell him, but he felt an immediate need to protect her. He took her to his castle, a magnificent structure of stone and glass that overlooked the sea. Lyra was fascinated by everything, the way the fabric of her dresses felt, the taste of cooked food, and the sound of music played on stringed instruments. Eric spent every moment with her, teaching her the ways of his world. Although she couldn't speak, they communicated through glances, smiles, and the language of the heart. Lyra was happy, but the shadow of Malachor's deadline loomed over her like a dark cloud. As the second day drew to a close, Lyra realized the difficulty of her task. Eric was enchanted by her, but he was also haunted by the memory of the mysterious singer who had saved him from the shipwreck. He didn't realize that the girl standing before him was the same person. He searched the coastal villages, hoping to find the voice that had guided him through the storm. Lyra wanted to scream, to tell him that it was her, but the silence was a physical weight in her chest. She danced for him that night, a dance that told the story of the waves and the tides, her movements so graceful and full of sorrow that it brought tears to Eric's eyes. He felt he was on the verge of a great discovery, yet the truth remained just out of reach.
On the final day, Malachor decided to intervene. He didn't want Lyra to succeed. He wanted her soul for his collection. He cast a spell of illusion, appearing as a beautiful maiden with Lyra's stolen voice. He approached Eric on the cliffs, singing the very song Lyra had sung during the storm. Eric was instantly entranced, believing he had finally found his savior. He announced that he would marry this stranger at sunset. Lyra watched from the balcony, her heart breaking into a million pieces. The sun began its slow descent toward the horizon, and she felt her limbs growing weak as the magic of the potion started to fade. It seemed that she had sacrificed everything for a love that would never be hers.
The wedding ship set sail as the last rays of the sun painted the sky in shades of blood and gold. Lyra stood at the prow, looking down at the dark water that was calling her home. She saw her sisters rise from the waves, their beautiful hair shorn short. They had traded their tresses to Malachor for a magical dagger. "Kill the prince before the sun sets," they whispered, "and you will become a mermaid again. You can come home, Lyra." Lyra took the dagger, its blade glowing with an unholy light. She entered the cabin where Eric lay sleeping, his face peaceful and full of the goodness she had fallen in love with. She raised the blade, her hand trembling. The sun's lower rim touched the sea. In that final moment, Lyra knew she couldn't do it. Her love for Eric was greater than her desire for life. She threw the dagger into the sea, where it turned the waves to fire. As the sun disappeared completely, Lyra felt her body dissolving. But instead of turning into sea foam, she felt herself being lifted by a warm, golden light. Because of her selflessness and her refusal to take a life to save her own, the spirits of the air, the daughters of the sky, claimed her. She was no longer a mermaid of the dark depths, nor a mortal of the fragile land. She had become a being of spirit, a guardian of the boundaries between worlds. Her voice returned to her, clearer and more beautiful than ever before. Eric woke up to the sound of Lyra's voice echoing in the wind. He ran to the deck, but she was gone. He looked out at the water and saw a shimmering figure in the air, a being made of light and stardust. He finally understood the truth. The girl who had been at his side was the one who had saved him, and her love had been so pure that it transcended the physical world. He wept for his loss, but he also felt a profound sense of peace. Lyra would always be with him, in the salt spray of the ocean and the gentle breeze that swept through the gardens. She had found her place, not by changing who she was, but by following the truth of her heart.
The legend of Lyra spread throughout Æthelgard and the surface world alike. It became a story told to remind everyone that the two worlds were not so different after all. The Sea King, moved by his daughter's sacrifice, opened the borders of his kingdom, allowing the wisdom of the deep to flow to the shore. Æthelgard flourished, no longer a hidden fortress, but a beacon of harmony. Lyra, from her place in the heavens, watched over both realms, ensuring that the song of the sea and the breath of the air would always find a way to harmonize. She had become the bridge she always dreamed of being, a symbol of hope for all who felt they didn't belong.
As we conclude this magical journey, remember that the greatest adventures often require the greatest courage. Lyra's story teaches us that true love isn't about possession, but about the willingness to see another's happiness as your own. It reminds us that there is magic in the world, hidden in the depths of the ocean and the heights of the sky, waiting for those brave enough to look for it. Thank you for diving into the depths with us today. If you enjoyed this tale of Æthelgard and the Little Mermaid, don't forget to take a piece of the magic with you as you return to your own world.
Thank you for watching The Little Mermaid, a magical underwater adventure. We hope this story brought a bit of wonder to your day. If you want to hear more epic tales and explore hidden worlds, please hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. Like this video if Lyra's journey touched your heart, and leave a comment below telling us which part of the underwater kingdom you'd like to visit. Until our next adventure, keep dreaming and keep exploring. Goodbye for now.